Hello.
Hello.
Y'all cute?
Hello. Hey, ladies.
Okay, Annie.
Oh, look at the hair.
Yes.
It's New Year's. New
New,
Year,
new,
new
new, new you.
Right. That's how it goes, right? New Year, new me. All right. How you doing tonight, ladies?
Tired.
I'm good. Tired making it though.
Yep,
Tired,
making it.
good, all of that. Totally get it. How's everybody out there doing tonight? Welcome to the Platform Sports Talk Show. It's a ladies' night, first Wednesday of every month, and the first Wednesday coming to you in the year of our Lord and Savior Blue Ivy 2022. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to click subscribe so that you can always know when Ladies' Night is and catch the rest of the shows too. They're all pretty good. But we know that you're here tonight for Ladies' Night. So, we're excited to see you all. And we've got a lot of great topics. As Cherita likes to say, we're your favorite sports and sports adjacent talk show. And so we've got a number of sports and sports adjacent topics. So we hope that you'll join us throughout the night. Don't forget to, if you're watching on YouTube or through Facebook, to hit us up in the comments. Joe's going to help us with that tonight, as always. So, ladies, let's get started. What kind of start is your New Year's off to?
I went to the gym 3 days in a row, so I'm 100% on commitment.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm already 3 days more than I was last year. So regardless, I've already won.
Growth.
Progress.
Growth. That's what that's called. What'd you say, Joe?
I said progress, and I think
Yeah.
that's the word that Frederick likes to use as saying it's sexy. So progress is sexy. Boom.
Okay, go. Okay,
Awesome.
go.
Awesome. My New Year's has been 2022 has been okay so far. I was sick for like the last 2 weeks of 2021. So that was unhelpful. But so not being sick, already better than what it was before. So first, let's talk about just looking back, since we're not too far into 2021. I mean, into 2022, for us to take a quick look back into 2021. We've lost a few people, I think, between the last show and this show, that we definitely want to pay homage to. First, some huge sports figures like John Madden, who all of us lost, the NFL lost. So, ladies, what's your connection to John Madden? Do you know him best as coach, broadcaster and announcer, or the voice and the brains behind the game?
That's me, the game. Me and my brother playing that, growing up. So, yeah, definitely Madden. I think I'm definitely too young for the, for the broadcasting and coaching and stuff, but definitely the game.
Awesome. Cherita, what about you?
I actually can give you a fun fact. I had the game growing up. So way back in the day, I did watch a little bit of football. So he is part of my childhood, and I kind of felt a little bit of nostalgia kind of melt away when I heard that news. So definitely impactful, regardless of if it's directly through being in the generation. Hey, Bunny, being in the generation who got to hear him broadcast live during sports, during games, but definitely was part of my childhood with a couple of the Madden football games when I was growing up.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely. It's not that I'm too young to remember him as a coach, but I don't think I really connected to coaches in that way in terms of like how I followed the game. Definitely remember him as a broadcaster. And I remember the first thing that really stuck out to me about him. So he used to call the Thanksgiving Day games, which of course are always played in Dallas and Detroit. And I learned that he was afraid to fly. And so he always took the bus to the game because he did like the turkey legs and gave out his like player of the games. And so I was like, this man takes a bus to these games. Like that just seems awful. So that was like my first memory of John Madden is like he loves this so much that he's willing to take a bus to be at these games. And then like I guess 20 years later, I play football for the St. Louis Slam women's professional football team. and I'm sitting in a bus for like 12, 13 hours on the way to like Minnesota to go play. So a little bit of foreshadowing that I was like, who likes football enough to take a bus? Turns out that would be me.
You do.
Yeah, turns out I am people. People are me. Let's see. We also lost Dan Reeves from the NFL, legendary coach, but also championship winning running back with the Dallas Cowboys back in the day. Sam Jones, who was in the NBA, is also in the Hall of Fame for the NBA. And then lastly, and this is where we jump into our first sports adjacent topic, RIP to the great Betty White. So
Yes.
pour one out for the last Golden Girl.
Thank you for being a friend.
Thank you
Yep.
for being a friend.
That one hit me, y'all. I'm not gonna lie.
Right?
The last day of the freaking year, that had to happen. But you know that I don't know if you guys saw the People's magazine of, you know, it said like made it to 100. Like that was literally the freaking, I don't even know how to explain it, like the headline.
Yeah.
And then didn't make it to 100. But I don't know. That was sad.
Like in 2 weeks. So
Yeah,
it was
right.
in advance and looking forward to that milestone. I think as we all were. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe.
No, you're fine. It's like, yeah, I think it's like January 15th or something.
Right.
No, it's like 17th. Okay, yeah. And I don't know. I just remember growing up and watching Golden Girls with my dad and stuff. And I was like, we were shopping that day and we saw a Golden Girls T-shirt. I almost got it. And I should have freaking got it. But yeah.
I didn't realize how much she did for on behalf on like allyship of the Black community. I knew that she was for us. I didn't realize she made a whole career out of using her platform to give other people that opportunity. So I was one of those kids who couldn't watch too much cable growing up, but I was allowed to watch TV Land. So I remember seeing her on like the Mary Tyler Moore Show and just kind of watching her not age from that point going forward. So
right.
to know that there were people who kind of inspired other individuals to use their platform on that type of stage, on the many stages she had, even up into her Saturday Night Live debut when she was like 88. So definitely one that hit home for a lot of us, regardless of where you are, because she was so tenured in life. She impacted, I want to say, at least like 4 generations of individuals. So it's dope to know that she carried that light until it burned out.
Absolutely. I, for one, was getting nervous when people were talking about celebrate Betty White's 100th birthday. And I'm like, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. I like kind of felt it in my soul that this was going to happen because there was too much hype being made about her 100th birthday.
Like I said, I was like, I literally saw the People's Magazine thing days before this happened. I was going to the bathroom. I saw that on my phone and I was like, don't even. And it happened.
And it happened. And to your point, Cherita, and I think this is perfect for Ladies' Night. So she is someone who used her platform, and not just used her platform, but lived her life in a way that I think is really inspiring to women. She divorced her husband in the 1940s when that was not a thing that was done because he didn't support her acting career. She chose not to have children at a time where it was like, that's what women do. She, throughout her career, made sure that she had a room, made space for, created opportunities for people of color, particularly Black people, even sometimes at the expense of her own participation in projects. And then later of life became an advocate of the LGBTQ plus community as well. And so it's just perfect for Ladies' Night that we celebrate Betty White, just an iconic woman who did a lot for women's rights. And so Betty White, even though you're sports adjacent, we celebrate you tonight. So also in terms of looking back, so New Year's is about looking back to things we're leaving behind in the previous year, right? And so one person who needed to get that off their chest was basketball player Dylan Gonzalez. So Dylan Gonzalez plays for a team in New Orleans in a league that is run by Master P. So starting things off with sentences we never thought we'd say in 2022. Master P runs a basketball league.
As he should have. I mean, it's been in the cards for him forever.
I mean, raise your hand if you saw that coming when we were singing Ice Cream Man and like, okay.
Make him say,
Exactly. And so 30 minutes before 2021 closed out, she tweeted out that Trey Songz, R&B singer Trey Songz, was a rapist, was the word that she used. Now, this wasn't news to a lot of people because Trey Songz is one of those habitual line steppers in this department. Lots of people tried to send a warning, have made accusations as recently as a court filing in November of 2022. So some people are maybe putting two and two together about whether or not, basketball player Dylan Gonzalez was, um, you know, in a part of that lawsuit. He already settled a lawsuit out of court in relation to this. And so she was just like, I cannot take this into another year. I need people to know. So, um, also, in terms of Masterpiece League, did not know that there was a co-ed basketball league, which is what the league is. So the team that she plays for is made up of both men and women. So any thoughts on this story, on any aspect of it? Masterpiece running a co-ed basketball league for some reason, or in terms of, again, another sports player, somebody else associated with sports, being connected to, being engaged in, being a victim of sexual assault and violence, allegedly.
I'd say for Master P, first of all, shout out for seeing the equity in men and women being equally talented and able to play in the same sport. I think that's cool. Off the only light part of that subject, you kind of got to live in the duality of this one because all we got is a tweet.
Mm-hmm.
We have to exist in the fact that where she's coming from, regardless of the context or anything, because all we have is the tweet, that something could have happened. At the same time, we got to be cautious that just because Trey Songz has racked up quite a few, it seems like annually, he had something in 2017, 18, maybe he skipped 19 and did a carryover from 2020. But he doesn't have the best reputation. Hey, Miss Williams.
Hey, Miss Williams.
But he doesn't have the cards stacked up in his favor at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, in one aspect, we have to stay innocent until proven otherwise. But to the credit of all women who have ever made this claim and been questioned, we also need to leave room that there is some context that may have some valid call outs behind it. So it's unfortunate that he does have the reputation that could carry more validity to just a single sentence dropped at like 11:34 p.m. before the new year.
Mm-hmm.
But we just got to make sure that we tread lightly on this one because you don't want to trash somebody at one perspective, but as a woman who's been in those shoes, we kind of got to give her room to process it. If she's been holding it in this long, what all is she holding in, and what all do we need to figure out about Trey Songz? He may be next to be canceled if this keeps going that direction.
Mm-hmm. Joe, any thoughts?
One, I hate when this stuff happens because, like, for obvious reasons, but when it's like a celebrity or artist that you like sometimes enjoy, like their
Mm-hmm.
their talent, you kind of feel like, oh man, now I gotta hate them, you know.
Right.
But no, I mean, obviously there's something there. If this is what, like, the fourth or fifth person that said something, like, you went through the years, Cherita, it's happened quite a bit. Nothing's happened to him yet, so that's why. I don't know. It's weird. Like, should she have posted on Twitter, like, for her last hurrah for 2020, like that? I mean, 2021. But again, nothing's happened to him yet, so is nothing legally is happening yet. So she had to get it off her chest.
Mm-hmm. And Cherita, I think you brought up a good word in terms of the duality of this, right? And how it's complicated. And I think that that's a lot of sports, right? So there's been a number of incidents that have happened recently, whether, don't know if you all saw, and those of you out there as well. So Antonio Brown, now former wide receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had a mid-game rage quit. So the reports differ, but what seems to be most widely reported is that he was asked to go back into the game. He told the coach that he was too injured to go back into the game. Um, Then the head coach, Bruce Arians, allegedly told him, then leave. So he said, fine. So then Mike Evans, the receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, comes over, tries to talk him out of leaving. It's like, he's like, bro, chill. It's mid game. Coach be on one, right? Like, don't walk away. AB said no, took off everything down to his are those boxer briefs? Like I don't even know what was going on, but he stripped down to his drawers. And then jumping jacked across the end zone, I think is the best way to describe that. While play was happening on the field, running, jumping jacked through the end zone and threw up the deuces and ran through the tunnel. Um, and a lot of the discussion has been a little bit tepid around this topic because speaking of somebody who has a reputation of stuff, AB's list has become quite long. But also, if you look at the trajectory of Antonio Brown, there's like very similar to Deshaun Watson, like nothing, 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 nothing. And then all of a sudden, it's like, who is this person? From IG meltdowns to what ended his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers, to what ended his tenure with the Oakland Raiders, to what ended his tenure with the New England Patriots, to now. And so some people have actually did some interesting documentation, again, allegedly, none of this has been proven, that there was a series of hits that he took in a playoff game when he was with the Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals. And that it kind of, again, allegedly, so we can't say that this is attributed to CTE. We don't know if this is another Vincent Jackson situation, also former wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Bucks, who was later found dead in a hotel room. Autopsy showed that he, in fact, had CTE. So we don't know for sure that that's what it is, but we also want to be careful knowing that that's a possibility, that mental illness is a possibility. He's already been sentenced to a mental health court diversion program for one of his prior incidents. Tom Brady has been speaking about the situation and without disclosing, I guess, HIPAA protected information, has tried to let us all know, like, hey, you might want to chill out on that. He's got some stuff going on. At the same time, like, just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean you wild out, right? Like, that's not necessarily what that means. And so, to what extent, like, can we have this conversation? It gets kind of complicated. Can you come down on somebody? Do you have to give him a pass because he may have a mental health disorder or he may have CTE or something like that? These kinds of conversations get complicated. What do you all think?
So, real quick, AB has been in our rundown like 5 different times. So, are we just getting all the AB out right now?
Sure, you can go for it.
All right. I was enjoying my Sunday, watching a movie, and Brendan tells me, "Come here, you gotta look at this," and he showed me. I understand, like, there's obviously something not right there, okay? But like you said, you can't just that can't just be the example, not the example, the excuse all the time. One, NFL needs to step in, not let teams keep trying to hire him. We got Tina Detweiler said mental illness is a real and still in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and that's true, especially for guys. But you've seen a lot of NFL players just this past season coming out and talking about it. But I don't know. It's just, and then his thing about his ankle being hurt. It's hard for me to believe that whenever you shouldn't have gone out there in the first place. If you were really that hurt, you should have been jumping around doing jumping jacks and throwing your clothes into the crowd. Then you wouldn't also be at an NBA game a day or two later enjoying life. Like, it's just hard for me to feel bad for this guy whenever Tom Brady stuck his neck out for his neck out there for you multiple times and's got you a ring, and then you still act like this. It's just unacceptable.
Yeah, it was speaking of getting a ring, like the Antonio Brown who we see now and who just recently got a ring last year is very different than the Antonio Brown who we saw, get a ring before. And so yeah, it's super complicated. Speaking of Cherita, sorry, before I move on.
No, you're good. I understand both perspectives. I'll be completely transparent. I don't know what he's specifically dealing with as far as what his mental illnesses are or are not. Just speaking personally from someone who's dealt with that, obviously I'm not a football player. I'm not like on a big screen with a lot of people screaming for me and depending on me. But even on a micro level of what he's going through, sometimes you are cool 2 days before and then you hit a breaking point out of nowhere. And I once again, I don't know too much about him as an individual or as an athlete, but just speaking on the topic of mental health, I'm no professional, but I deal with it personally. Just kind of giving that space that, something had to happen mentally with him. I don't know about his injury. I don't know about why he was at the NBA game the day before, but I can personally attest that sometimes
The
there's
day
days
after.
I'm 100% cool, and
Yeah.
then 5 minutes into the day, I have a complete breakdown. And I mean, that's me not on a big screen in front of thousands and thousands of fans watching my every movement. So, I
Mhm.
mean, Tom Brady, to your point, Joe, he stuck his neck out for him. He's gotten some things pulled through. And if anyone could be quiet and have a valid silence on what's happening, probably would be Tom Brady to kind of keep his mouth shut and say, I did what I could for kid and I don't feel like talking on this anymore.
Mhm.
Something about this story just kind of resonated with me because I've been there and I've flipped out
Mhm.
at work before and then like been cool 2 minutes later, but everybody remembers you flipped out and nobody understands what you're going through but you. And even to AB's perspective, he might not even know what triggered him to do that day. So
Mhm.
just being, obviously our job is to analyze whatever the hell's happening from our perspective, but just to give that, additional insight that he could have been cool 2 days before and something freaking happened during that game. And I'm not in his shoes to give a whole excuse for it, but just
Mhm.
on the aspect of that this is a real thing, and to the young lady's point who made a comment, I think it was Tina, um, just making sure that we have that conversation that, Simone Biles stepped back before her breaking point.
Mhm.
If she would have done this during the floor routine, but she didn't have a background in it, we would have been a little forgiving on it. So to your point, Annie, about, Trey Songz had that huge reputation, but we don't know what happened there. This young man also had a huge reputation, and this could have been a genuine, breakdown. And how do we handle it going forward? And how do we set up some sort of support so that anybody else in a similar perspective or similar position in the NFL, NBA, anything major, can be protected before they break on a public platform?
Mhm.
Yeah, like I, get everything you're saying, and that's why I was saying, you can see it on two sides, but we can go back to the NFL. Like I said, it's he shouldn't be able to get a job anymore. This has been going on for multiple years. He shouldn't be able to do this. And then like you said, Annie, like Tom Brady went out there and he pretty much said like, let's not talk about that. Like he's
Mhm.
got some stuff going on. Like Tom Brady's just a good dude. Like everyone can hate him, but he's just a good guy. He's the goat. But we did have another comment, Fred, if you could bring that up. Daniel Olson said, "My boo, I don't think he wants to play anymore. He was in the club with Fab that night." So I don't know. I think he's just. I just. Again, I get the mental side of it because, like
Mhm.
I said, you've been seeing a lot of athletes, not just NFL, but baseball,
Mhm.
hockey, a lot of them coming out and talking about it. So he shouldn't feel like nervous or scared, I guess. I don't know. It's a touchy subject, and I feel like just because now mental stuff's coming out, people just want to
Mhm.
put that as the excuse whenever this has been happening for like 5-6 years now. So
Mhm.
it's just like I said, touchy. But Miss Williams said Tom Brady supports his teammates, which and so did Mike Evans. Mike Evans was
Yeah.
trying to calm him down, and the dude just continued to strip. Like I don't know what the hell that was all about.
Right.
It's probably freezing there too.
Right. And the thing is, yeah, because they were playing in New Jersey, or
hmm
yeah, New Jersey. That's where their stadium is. So yeah, he wasn't stripping down in Tampa Bay. And I agree, Joe, that it's like it's complicated. There's and to again to use the word that Cherita used earlier, there's a duality to it as well, right? Because on the one hand, it's like if you need help, I feel like, especially at the end of 2021, start of 2022, that there's been so many athletes who have come forward with any myriad things happening, with any myriad things going on. From, you mentioned Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, who just won her first tennis match after taking a 4-month mental health break. She won yesterday, I think it was. in her first match back since taking a break. But even in the NFL, so you had a player from the Atlanta Falcons who left the team midseason and said that he needed to take a mental health break as well, that he could not continue to play football in the mental health state that he was in because he was at risk of injuring himself physically. And the Atlanta Falcons came out in support. Many NFL players came out on social media in support of him taking that break, saying, take care of yourself, all of that. On the Oakland Raiders, everything from Darren Waller, tight end, and the defensive end, whose name I'm forgetting, coming out as struggling with substance use disorder, having both recently been in rehab, and them coming out about their struggles with substance use disorders and alcoholism. To another defensive player for the Oakland Raiders starting the season by announcing that he identifies as gay, and again received large support. So to your point, Joe, it seems like now more than ever, right, that if you are struggling with anything, that you would receive more support than not. If you were to let someone know, like, hey, I need help, or hey, I'm struggling, or hey, I haven't been right. And kind of without that self-acknowledgement, then it just leads to a lot of speculation. And like we talked about in the last topic, you get to a place where you build up such a reputation that people start to think that because there's smoke, there's fire. And people aren't going to be as willing to take Tom Brady's position, which is let's show him grace. Like, let's, just extend him grace and like not talk about this anymore. Speaking of Oakland Raiders, in terms of complicated situations, as we know, earlier in the fall of 2021, well, I guess it was like mid-fall, wide receiver Henry Ruggs was arrested, and I believe that his legal situation is still working itself out. But in Las Vegas, where the Las Vegas Raiders play, for causing a car crash in which a woman and her dog.
Don't forget the dog
really
this time,
important.
Annie.
I know the dog is really important to a certain segment of the platform sports talk show audience. And that they lost their lives. And so this young man who had an extremely promising career, that is now gone. And now we have, to start off this year, another Oakland Raiders player, cornerback Nate Hobbs, I believe is his name.
Yeah, it is.
Who was recently arrested the details are a little bit fuzzy. Like, I need photos. So some describe it as his car was on the exit ramp of a hotel parking garage. Some descriptions say it was near it. So I need to see some photos so I can judge for myself, like what's the accurate measure in the proximity of his car to said exit ramp. But he was found asleep in his car on or near an exit ramp of a parking garage of a hotel after a big victory in Indianapolis against the Indianapolis Colts, flying back into Las Vegas, went to a hotel bar, got some drinks, and then about 4 a.m. the next morning, was found by police officers and failed sobriety test. And so, rightfully so, people are like, of all things, like you just had a teammate be arrested in Las Vegas for killing a woman and her dog due to drunk driving. And now you have the nerve to be drunk and asleep in your car. Maybe leaving, maybe not leaving, depending on proximity. I believe that his status for Sunday's game is still up in the air, as the coach has just said that they're investigating the situation, looking into it and what may have happened. But when you have situations like this, like the Antonio Brown situation, the rash of COVID things, it brings up just what a complicated relationship we have to sports. Like, on the one hand, there's all these very serious social issues, societal issues, people who are going through some tremendously important things, of which sports is not in some ways. But at the same time, like, we're doing a sports talk show. So we obviously love sports. And none of this is completely new. And so we've been through similar situations before, and we continue to love sports. And so I just want to talk a little bit more, because I think people, when having these types of conversations, feel the need to either turn a blind eye to it and just say, but look at all the people in the league who don't do these things, and use that as their marker, or those who are like, I can no longer watch this because of CTE, COVID, serious injuries, those sorts of things. So, ladies, how do you feel about this? Again, duality, love that word, Cherita. And the complicated relationship that we have with sports, where it's like social issues that we care about, things that are important and big deals. But also, I'm excited for a full weekend slate of games in the NFL. Cherita, you're probably looking forward to the next wrestling thing. Like, we're going to spend another 90 minutes talking about other sports things. So, how do you all feel about this complicated relationship with sports?
Joe, I'll let you go.
Oh, all right. No, I mean, it's funny because I feel like since the COVID season, for all sports, I feel like this relationship with sports has become what you were saying. It's kind of like a love-hate thing. Some people don't want to deal with it because of COVID or social problems and this and that. Like, shoot, I can think of a handful of things right now, just since 2020. But I mean, like you said, though, we have to talk about it, especially right now. Whenever sports, they're kind of like, it's still happening, but like we'll talk about later with the NBA, things are weird and different. Football, we're almost in the playoffs. Hockey just had a week or two off. Baseball, we'll get to that later too. So, I mean, we have to talk about these things, about players getting into trouble. And I do think it's a lot more players than just, AB and Ruggs and Hobbs and, all these other guys. But sports is just really weird right now. That's all I'll say. I still love it. I watch football with Brendan and cross my fingers and toes for baseball to come back sometime soon. But it's just sports are in a weird state.
Yeah. And do you want to grab that comment real quick before we get to Cherita's thoughts on this?
Yeah, Fred is saying it's time for these athletes to focus on their health than their paychecks, which is true. Like, I was going to say about the Hobbs and Ruggs thing, aren't teams in general, as like a business standpoint, supposed to be having someone a part of their organization that's supposed to be there to help with this type of stuff? Like, I think we talked about it with the Ruggs incident. Like, don't they have like Uber at their fingertips whenever they need it?
Yeah. And not only that, he was literally at a hotel. Like, he makes enough money to be like, I'm not even going to walk out to my car. I'm just going to get a room in this building that I'm already in that has a ton of them. I think for me, the thing that's not clear is, did he get ready to leave, think about Ruggs, and then was like, nah, I'm just going to sleep this off for a little bit? Or did he like actually try to move the vehicle? See, that's why I need to see like how the vehicle was. Like, was he in a parking spot near the ramp? Was he just stopped on, like, I've been to like airport parking garages where there's spaces on the actual ramps themselves. So was he in something like that? So he wasn't actually moving the car, maybe because he did have that moment of clarity, like, what am I about to do? Maybe he got in his car and he just passed out before he get moved. Maybe he started driving and passed out while driving. But I mean, the vehicle wasn't on. So I think that's not the scenario. But yeah.
Sorry, Annie. The opportunity with the DUI is whether the vehicle's on or off, he was sitting in front of the steering wheel.
Right.
So we all know that's what causes the DUI, whether the car's moving, parked, responsibly set to the side of the road because you realize this isn't good. If he would have like parked and moved over to the passenger seat and been pulled over, they never would have given a sobriety test. But
or he could have taken the keys out of the ignition and put them in the glove compartment, and you would also not be charged with a moving.
Yeah, if it's not next to you, you're good to
go. Annie's crime tip of the day. So far, I've talked about how to pass drug tests for the Olympics. I think there was another one where I was like, here's where my 15 years of the criminal justice system will come in handy. And now you also know if you put your keys in the glove compartment, then it's not considered a moving violation. And the DUI that he was charged with was the misdemeanor DUI, not even the felony DUI, which was an option for the police. So again, that leads me to believe, like, did he actually start to make a horrendous decision and instead just made a kind of bad one? Or was this like moments away from being a repeat of Henry Ruggs?
Guess we'll never know unless there's like a street camera somewhere or something. Before we go
Imagine
to
if they have
sure.
cameras in that parking
Oh,
garage, right? I mean,
you
it's a
would
Vegas
think.
hotel.
Yeah, it's Vegas. Yeah, I was gonna ask for this comment. Miss Williams says, if we look at sports history, lots of very talented players have had serious issues. Look at Babe Ruth. But now people are saying we have to pay attention and not dismiss them. It's just
Hmm.
part of time, like things are changing, and it started to be okay now for men to be emotional and show that they have flaws, and that
Hmm.
all has something to do with it. But we got Barrett Westbrook said not only CTE is the only factor that affects the athlete's mental health, but also the fame. Athletes
Hmm.
should focus on their mental health and get help before they perform on the court or field, which it's true. Like I know Robin Leonard for the Vegas Golden Knights. He came out a year or two ago talking about how he's had mental illness. And I think Carey Price for the Montreal Canadiens, it's the same thing for
Hmm.
him, and he's not even playing right now.
Absolutely.
Cherita.
Cherita, what about you? I personally, well, one, I think I've said this before when you first came on the show. So I used to love wrestling when it was the WWF. And I quit watching because I couldn't get past the complicated relationship that I had to it, particularly once the women started to become featured more, like Trish Stratus and Lita and China. Stephanie McMahon first started wrestling. And it was just like seeing men um, like put Trish Stratus's head in a mop bucket and like seeing her kicking and fighting, or seeing them like try to or not try, but like pull a brawl off one of the women performers in the lives in a stadium, even if that's scripted, like in her covering up and them shaming her and just sort of like all of that. I just couldn't get past it. So that's why I quit watching wrestling. I don't know if you also have complicated relationships, if that's why you maybe quit watching other sports or don't watch other sports, or if you think about that in terms of wrestling. What are your thoughts?
I mean, to go back to the original topic that we're talking about with, football or, real sports, the athletes are now rock stars. I mean, I think that this part of their life was something that if anyone had a vice that they used to get through their day to day outside of the
Mhm.
pressure of sports and performance, I think if anything, they've gotten more comfortable showing that they're drinking a lot. They're doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing with women in front of or behind cameras. We've turned athletes into rock stars, and rock stars are glorified for their use of alcohol and things like that. Our athletes do have a lot more to lose as far as they need their bodies to do this level of intense performance, as opposed to a rock star who's on for 2 hours, jams out, and then gets back to the bus. But I just think that we're at the point now where we've glorified them so much that it's a catch-22 for them. If they call out for mental health, they're weak. If they get caught with a DUI, we're wondering why their higher professionals aren't coaching them to make better decisions. This is the same sport where people are also hired to be financial assistants, and they're blowing money on shit you shouldn't blow money on, and they have people paid to help them make better decisions with that as well. To circle back for wrestling, I mean, the Usos live in DUI Central, and how they're not in jail, I have no idea. But every couple of months, one of those twins is getting pulled over with alcohol abuse. Stone Cold brought out his alcohol, performed probably drunk, and then drank more, whether he won or lost after the match.
I will
And
say
he
though,
was my
Sharita,
favorite.
his beer, whiskey, more beer, like that's awesome. I'm sorry, okay, that's
He was
hilarious.
my favorite.
That's the thing we live in, right? Where like it's cool to watch it with wrestlers, but we want to kind of shame the football players for doing it because we respect the sport more. So because wrestling is considered more sports entertainment, this thing that is equally detrimental to their health is considered part of the entertainment. But football players who actually, are football players. It's a catch-22. Where are we for this or are we against this? And if we're for it, it should apply to everybody. And if we're against it, it should apply to everybody. I honestly just never really caught on to other sports because honestly, I was a college sport fan. I figured people play harder and I saw them play harder when they weren't getting paid. And then I kind of realized it kind of went to the wayside when they went pro. With wrestling, everyone thinks it's fake anyway. So everybody gives it their all. And you're thoroughly, if you're me, you're thoroughly entertained from the beginning to the end, even if you have a lot of criticism in the middle. But I just think that this is a call out. And I think it's fair to say to compare it to Hobbs versus Ruggs, where obviously this doesn't end well for people, but it's still happening. And what is the problem that we're not setting them up where they don't feel like they can ask for help? Even if he made the decision to get in behind the wheel and decided I'm not going to drive, he didn't really have to leave the hotel room, to your point, Annie. So there's just a lot where, between being a fan and watching your athletes, we're in a very toxic relationship because if Bill in accounting gets pulled over with DUI, he probably don't got a job the next day. Yeah. But these gentlemen get kind of a paid leave, kind of a pat on the back as long as they can fix themselves to get back in shape before the end of the season. And then we just kind of hope they don't hit the reset button and do it all over again. So there's a fame and an acceptance on this that we do let athletes get away with. And then we also kind of call them out for continuing to get caught versus not having to have it in the first place. So it's interesting and kind of sticky for me.
What's kind of messed up as us fans of sports is like when they come back and they do something good for your team, or I don't know what you call a wrestling team, I don't know. But then they come back after something like this and we're all like excited and like it happens, like compared to the stuff we're talking about, the thing that the Astros did is like nothing, like icing, whatever. And obviously I'm going to cheer for them and I get crap for that. So like, like if Ruggs comes back and Hobbs comes back and they make a big play, they're going to get cheered. That's just us as flawed human beings and fans of our teams,
Yeah.
I mean, even to the opposite, if you take somebody like CM Punk, who made it very clear that he was what you call straight edge, which basically means he's always sober. He doesn't do any type of drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, nothing. I remember there was a match where someone poured alcohol down this man's mouth, and literally his lifestyle is I don't touch the stuff. And I remember being a fan and watching the fans, and people cheered for this. And this guy made it, as much as he was a heel or not everyone's favorite wrestler. That was Chris Jericho that poured, I think it was whiskey down his mouth. And it there was a part of me, even in my teenage years, I was like, it's kind of effed up. Like all the things you could do and the things you can legally do to someone in a match in wrestling. The one thing you do is the thing this guy doesn't stand for personally. And you're literally pouring alcohol down his mouth. Even if it was just a prop and it's apple juice or it's whatever. The kayfabe of it all is he's straight edge. And even the appearance of making him drink was a little disgusting.
Absolutely. So there's no easy transition from these serious topics, but I do want to kind of move into what may be the lighter side of the situation. So not talking about Antonio Brown himself, but two other central figures in that story. So one is Mike Evans, who tried to, get him to chill out. Maybe this isn't on the lighter side, but to me, it's on the lighter side. We also saw two sideline fights in the NFL this past week by teammates. So this wasn't against another team. So someone from two defensive linemen from the Washington football team got into it. One threw a punch. And then, cornerback for the Los Angeles Rams, Jalen Ramsey, punched someone else on defense on the sideline, and it was captured on camera. And people trying to step in the middle and break it up and get between them. Same thing on the Washington football team. Have any of you ever been involved in trying to break up a fight? Or Joe, having played sports, have you ever experienced a fight amongst teammates and maybe tried to break it up or not?
Amongst teammates, no, like my freshman year of high school ball, me and this girl were kind of getting at it, but it wasn't anything serious, so, and I ended up on top of that. So, but
When you say on top of that, we're not gonna let that slide. So you beat her, you whooped
No, so
her,
like it wasn't
you
like
pinned her down.
physical.
What happened? We need
No,
details.
it wasn't physical or anything. It's just petty high schools, you know, your
Mm,
freshman year, and you want to make an impression on the varsity team. And she was causing some fit about something. She didn't want to play, I think, because I was a starting catcher and she wasn't.
mm,
And everyone loved using her DeMarini bat. And then she quit the team in the middle of the game, Antonio Brown style,
mm.
and took her bat with her. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll use that bat. I'll use a different bat. And
So
that
she
was
literally like took her ball and went home like that. Like,
she took her bat and
well,
packed up her bag and left. And she actually lived not far away from high school, so she just walked home, I guess. But me ending up on top was that was my first home run in high school that was actually like over the fence, you know, not
mhm.
run it out, which that didn't happen often because I wasn't that fast. But yeah, it was a grand slam against Valley Park over the fence. So and she was walking away as it happened, so it was like kind of like a storybook thing. But I've never had to break up a fight or anything like that. I wish I got to. It would have been kind of cool, honestly. Now I'm a mom. I can't do that stuff. I'm a mom. I have to be mature and stuff. Cherita, what was that face?
All right, she made a face like
Being
she's supposed to
mature.
break up a
That's
fight.
not what we're here to co-sign. Whatever you feel moved to do is what you can do.
Cherita, have you ever tried to break up a fight or stop someone from rage quitting? Since you're a manager.
Honestly, if you're in that much of rage, I'll open the door for you, bro. I've never I've never been that close to a fight to break it up. Honestly, by the time I know a fight's happening and I run to it, somebody already broke it up. So, never been that close or that fast as a fight. Looking at the Washington football team and that sideline fight against the Cowboys, I find it interesting. And Annie, I'm sure you appreciated the outcome of that game either way because I believe the Cowboys won, correct? It was like a heavy loss.
Oh yeah, we scored like
It was
50
like
points.
56-14.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it
I
was
feel like if
beautiful. It
you
was
walk into
magical.
the game cocky and you're expecting, we're playing the Cowboys, we should win, and you realize you're losing by like 37 points, you may want to fight the person next to you. So I mean, I don't know who didn't see this coming once they started losing that badly.
That's a good point. I mean, if I played for Washington, I would just be perpetually in a state of wanting to fight anyway because that team sucks. But outside of that, I have not. Let's see. I have the closest I've come to fighting in football was in flag, and it wasn't even about me. Like I'm not the type of person who, like, you can say whatever you want to me on the football field or in life. Like I've had too much contact with the criminal justice system that I'm afraid to risk my freedom. So I just don't let stuff bother me
Hold
in
on,
that
you made
way.
me elaborate. What's going on?
No, I'm just saying, like having worked in the criminal justice system for 15 years, like I'm definitely afraid of spending a night in jail. So I'm not gonna fight nobody. I've had in football, like, offensive linemen from the other team talk about meet me in the parking lot after the game and all this other stuff. Or, ticky tacky stuff or even hard stuff, like after the whistle was blown, like trying to like I don't care about any of that. That doesn't excite me. But in a flag football game, somebody on the other team like literally grabbed the wrist of one of my sisters, and I was like, "Oh hell no! What we not about to do is put your hands on my people." And I'm looking at the ref like, "Are you gonna break this up, or I gotta handle it?" So like, I got in between them, um, and so it was just like, so that was the closest I've come to actually being in a fight. I think that same game, or maybe another one, again, this was flag. Another one of my teammates was gonna fight someone, and another one of my teammates like ran and like tackled her to keep her from getting to the other woman. So that was interesting. Um, but like during games, no. But I remember the best like inter-team sports fight I've ever seen was in North Carolina. So I'm a big roller derby fan, which is definitely a sport that we should talk about sometime on the show. Um, but or yeah, sports entertainment. I'll think about it. So no, they do play defense. So okay, sport. Um, and it was like the team had just won like the league, like the regional league or whatever. and one of the women was retiring, so it was her last bout. So she like took a victory lap, waved to the fans, got back around to her own bench, and just jumped on this woman and whooped her. Like she said, she had been holding that in for years. She never liked this woman, and now that she was like officially like to the nanosecond not a part of this team, she took all of that rage out on her. I thought it was hilarious. To just see some, because she didn't wait for people to leave or anything. She like just took a lap and then was just like, and I'm done. And now you catch these hands. Um, so so that was funny to me. The other interesting character in this story, in terms of the lighter side of this incident, is Tom Brady, who of course helped Antonio Brown get a job with the New England Patriots after Antonio Brown was no longer in the league, and then talked to Bruce Arians, who seemed to never have been on board with bringing on Antonio Brown. Was moved by Tom Brady to bring him to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then he rage quits during a game. Have any of you like put a friend on, whether it's to a job, maybe introduce two friends for like a blind date or something, and have it blow up in your face, and then people question like, and you're like, man, you're killing my reputation with this. Have either of you experienced anything like that?
I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything. What about you, Cherita?
I'm always the friend that's trying to get the friend a job. So I would definitely say this falls into my bracket of things I've been able to speak to. Honestly, I'm trying to think of one that actually blew up in my face. I don't refer people to jobs that I don't get a bonus for. So even if it blows up in my face, the check already cashed and then it cleared. But I just like to make sure if I put my name on you, I gotta know with my soul you're not gonna make me look crazy in hindsight. So I can't say I've gotten someone hired and it blew up in my face. I can say there are people that I helped get promoted and I realized you are not ready for this and I should have never psyched you up to be in this position. But by then, once again, they didn't report to me. Not my bridge to cross anymore, and don't call me for nothing else.
Wow.
Yeah, like I've referred people to like a job and to a team that I played on, but it always ended up pretty good. So, nothing blew up in my face. Before Fred, I read this, Miss Williams, she had another comment about the Rams. She said, must have been a full moon or something. The Rams got into a scuffle with each other in the opening minutes of the game.
Yeah, that was Jalen Ramsey.
And then she just said, I recommended a person for a job at Sigma because I'd worked with him before and he quit a couple months later. Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah. I think this is where you then have to fight your friend, right? So
we ain't friends
anymore. So instead of being in the previous position where you break up a fight, like if I put my name on you and you come in here and you act out, now we have to fight, right?
Yeah.
Like now we have beef. So I feel like that's where that one has to go. Cherita, you had mentioned earlier, being a fan of college sports, maybe more so than professional sports. A lot of people are. That's another one of those things where it's like a complicated relationship in terms of I love college football and college basketball, but they're also not getting paid for putting themselves on the line in the ways that they do, particularly college football. Even with NIL, it doesn't compare to the money that they make for the universities. But I still love it. Still love college football. Had a great semifinals. Had a like the New Year's Day bowl games. A lot of those were super good. And so now we're down to the final two, which just feels like what was the rest of the season for? We could have told you at the start of the season that these were going to be the two teams that were in the championship. The rest of this was for a show. So it's down to the Alabama Crimson Tide once again and the Georgia Bulldogs in a rematch from last year's title game. No, they're rematch from this year, and Alabama is trying to repeat as champions. So, any thoughts on the college football season, the final two teams, or what it means to have a sport where there's really not really parity and just total domination, and the rest of the season really is just for our entertainment and pockets?
Roll Tide all I can say. I actually appreciate that. I actually know what to say during this show. No, my granny is from Alabama, so there are some sports and some affiliations I was born into, and her hereditary to my loyalty. So I gotta go with Alabama. I was somewhere, and they were playing in the background, and they were losing horribly, and then randomly they just started winning. So I might be their good luck charm. I'll tune in and see how that goes. But I can actually say that I confidently have a team that I would go for in this one, and not just shoot from the hip. So I gotta go with Alabama. I gotta make sure my granny's smiling down on that game when it happens.
Joe, what about you? You got a rooting interest in this?
I don't have a rooting interest. I will read you literally what I wrote down, word for word. I don't know much about college football, but I do know it's the same teams there every year, it feels like, and I'm going to go with Nick Saban and Bama. Like, that's literally what I wrote down. Like,
Right.
I feel like it's the same two teams, 4 out of 5, and whatever. I mean, they usually end up being fun, exciting games. I said, I don't really know anything about it and don't really watch it much, but I tend to watch these bowl games and whatnot, and they're fun.
Yeah. So what does it say about your sport where people who don't even follow it can make very credible, like Vegas odds winning predictions about who the champion will be, right?
Yeah, it's crazy what they're doing there. Like, since I've been alive, I feel like it's always them. So hopefully they keep it up for you and your granny.
Yeah, I don't really have a dog in the fight. I have a really close friend who's a big Georgia Bulldog fan. So I always hate to see him upset. So part of me roots for Georgia. At the same time, being someone who played on a dynasty, I don't hate dynasties. So I'm also rooting for Alabama in some way. So I'm just hoping for a good game.
Yeah, that's the main thing. You don't want to see whatever you said it was, what Cowboys and Washington football team, like, that's just not fun to watch at all.
If I had a rooting interest in the team, like the Dallas Washington football game, let me take that back. I was about to say it's fun to watch. It's never fun to watch a Cowboys game. I'm too invested. My heart rate goes up so much that, like, I actually can't enjoy it. It doesn't matter how much we're up by. I still feel like at any moment we're going to give the game away. So let me not use them as an example. I appreciate blowouts by North Carolina basketball, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to just win. I want my team to destroy your soul and make you question whether or not you should lace up your shoes ever again. So I like those kinds of games if I have a rooting interest in the team. But if I don't, then I'm like, I hope this stays competitive. So that's my wish.
See Miss Williams' comment for you, Annie?
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate you. New year, new me.
I will say, when the Cardinals whip up on the Cubs, that's always fun and nice, But for, like, just wanting to watch a good game on TV when the Cardinals or Blues aren't playing, I want it to be a good close game.
Yeah. So another thing that often comes up with the college football, particularly the bowl game season, is about sit-outs. So after the regular season, once college athletes are kind of getting a sense of what their actual draft stock for the NFL or position might be, they start making some business decisions about whether or not they're going to continue to play at the college level and potentially risk their draft position, which does influence money. So it's kind of like if you've ever worked for the government and there's like GS scales, right? Or pay bands, right? So like where you get drafted does impact the salary range that you can be offered. And so they don't want to play with their position. They don't want to risk a career-ending injury. And so they choose to sit out on bowl games. I don't care if people sit out. I wouldn't see it as quitting. If I were on that team, I would not see it as quitting on your team. Our team, we can't say you play for the name on the front of the jersey, not the back, and then put the onus on one or two people to have to play. If we are the team, then we still have to go out there and we still have to win, regardless of 2 or 3 people not showing up. Like, we still have to be ready, kind of, next man, next woman up mentality. And if you're talking about this as a family, if my family member had a chance to make millions of dollars, generational wealth, and it was like they had an interview for that type of job, or they could come to my birthday party, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, well, your family, why wouldn't you come to my birthday party? I'm gonna be like, go get your money. Why'd you even ask me if it would be okay for you to miss my birthday party? Like, I've had, well, 39, almost 40 of these. Like, hopefully there will be more, but you good. Like, do what you got to do. If you, the announcer, Kirk Herbstreit in particular, just kept going on and on and on about one of the quarterbacks who got hurt in the game, choosing to play in the game because he said, this is my team, this is my family. And so I'm not going to sit out. He got hurt during the game, but he was just, Kirk Herbstreit, one of the announcers, famed college football announcer, was just like, he did it the right way. And if this is a family, you can't quit on your family. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know what kind of family you come from, but there's some people I would quit on. And then two, if I love my family, I want you to care about your health, care about your generational wealth, and not sit out what is basically an exhibition game, because it's not for the national championship. It's an exhibition game. So no. What do you all think about bowl sit outs?
No, I'm fine with it. Like, especially, these kids know they're going to be drafted, like that's coming up. So why would you risk it? Like you said, it's not like it's the championship. And if it was me, I know my luck would be I'd go out there, for my team and I'd tear something. Like my brother had a buddy that he was drafted by at the time the Tampa Devil Rays, and later on had to get Tommy John and could never get going again, and now he plays co-ed softball. Like that sucks. So yeah, you can't get mad at them for doing that.
Yeah, Cherita.
I don't see how we don't predict this happening. You look at the list of schools from the players that are skipping the games, and these are the schools you go to get recruited by the NFL. Like the Ohio State, Mizzou, Arizona State, Tennessee. Mind you, I don't even watch football, and I understand the strategy in attending this school if you're good at a sport. So you can always finish a degree, but your career has a very small window in your life. So, I don't understand the irritation or the disgust that these gentlemen are basically continuing the strategy of being recruited from college. So, do better with your other players, to be honest with you. Like, make sure your second and third string guys are ready to step up and help you win these games. But these are the individuals who intentionally went to these schools to catch the eye, to get the contract, to get the money. So
right.
I don't see a problem with it. I say, keep your heart 3 stacks. This is what you're supposed to do, and protect your body so you can have that cash out on that window that you have to be great.
Right. And don't forget, for those of you watching in across our multiple platforms, if you're tuning in via, Facebook or YouTube, make sure to drop it in the comments. Let us know what you think about bowl sit outs. Are you on Kirk Herbstreit's side, where you think everybody should play? Or are you team ladies night, where you're like, go get the bag, it's cool, you
go
did
get
what
paid.
You needed to do, right?
That's why you're playing. Like, obviously you're playing to have fun, but you're playing to make your dreams come true and make money and help your family out and yourself out for your. I don't know. It's just silly. We have to even talk about it, honestly.
Yeah,
they're surprised on it every year, like every year.
Yeah, Miss Williams says it's their decision. They have to think about their future, which exactly, like they want to get to the NFL. Like you said, Cherita, that's why they go to these certain schools. They get recruited by these guys so that they can get recruited by the NFL and hopefully get drafted.
Absolutely. So thank you, Miss Williams, for that comment and the previous comment about my hair. Like I said, new year, new me. So speaking of new year, new me, which is what New Year's is all about, what teams or organizations or leagues do you think need a total makeover, like the one I've given myself today?
Major League Baseball. That's it. Dot. Like, period. I don't know if you guys pay attention at all, but we're over a month in on this quote unquote lockout. One of the biggest well-known sports writers not just in baseball, but in sports, Ken Rosenthal was let go by MLB Network because he mentioned that Rob Manfred didn't handle the 2020 COVID season correctly. It was very poorly, which it's true. I remember ESPN, I think, had all the main leagues commissioners on, and it's sad that I liked Gary Bettman for the NHL more than I liked Rob Manfred, because Manfred just said, like, we don't know what we're doing yet. And that's whenever we started the season in June. So it sounds like, I don't know if it'll be June, but I've been seeing a lot of people being funny on Twitter saying that that's probably going to happen again, that it won't happen until June. So if that's the case, that sucks for obvious reasons. But like, as a Cardinals fan, no Wainwright, no Molina for a full 162 is really gonna suck ass. Sorry sorry for my language, because like they came back for one more hoorah with the Cardinals, and they may not even get a chance to go out there and show, their love for the city, for their team. This it it affects so much stuff. Like, now you can't have spring training. The players can't go work out with the team's um, training staff and at their facilities. So now people are going to be rushing to get ready for the 2022 season. It's going to cause injuries. Like, it's just a domino effect of bad that's happening.
Yeah.
Tina Detweiler said Jalen Hurt draft stock dropped to getting hurt.
Yeah, so Jalen Hurts, now current quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, former quarterback of said Alabama Crimson Tide. His teams were more hesitant to, draft him, and it probably impacted his position after he got hurt. So absolutely. Cherita, any thoughts on what leagues, organizations, or teams or wrestlers, performers need a total makeover? Other than me thinking that they should rename the Black women instead of giving them Fresh Prince of Bel-Air names.
Steelers.
Yikes! We'll get there. I think they're on the list to be talked about today. For total makeovers, I would probably, honestly, not a makeover, but a reset, because they rebranded NXT, and I'm not a fan of the branding. They were the go-to show, a little bit grittier than the main roster. So NXT is originally set up to be where people fresh out of their wrestling training get their career started, and if they were lucky enough, they go to the main roster. The last few picks from the NXT roster to the main roster weren't even that great of a stick to go to the main set, either SmackDown or Raw. But it's just the way they've rebranded it. It kind of feels like MTV after they stopped playing music videos and all you got to look forward to was ridiculousness. That's kind of what NXT has turned into for me. Obviously, there's still good talent on the roster, but the way they branded it almost feels like bubblegum to me, considering this is where people would get their start and then they would kill it and then go to the main roster. At this point, if you're at the main roster and you go back to NXT and you get a championship, Mandy Rose, I'm wondering why you even got this championship, because you weren't that good here, you still weren't that good there, and they sent you back and now you're a champion. So it doesn't make sense to me anymore. I really do just hope that they go back to whatever caused that makeover they just had and just go back to your natural state.
Yeah. I would say for me, originally my pick was going to be the Pittsburgh Pirates, but
girl, they've been eating that for a couple years, okay?
Right, but what would be the point? We do not have ownership that even cares about doing anything like that. They would not even they would not even entertain it. I would say that they like being lovable losers, but I don't even know how lovable the Pirates are outside of Pittsburgh. So you don't have like that kind of situation, but definitely after, speaking of the Steelers, after the game Monday night, the Cleveland Browns definitely have some tough decisions to make about Baker Mayfield, who I never thought was that good anyway. And, they went from absolutely embarrassing the Steelers last year, which was fun for me to watch, of course, and winning their first playoff game, coming a few plays away from defeating the Kansas City Chiefs. to just a complete meltdown. And so they've got to think through some things. So they would be my candidates for the team that needs the is in most need of a complete rehaul or makeover. And speaking of makeovers, it was just announced either today or yesterday that the Washington football team has decided on a new name and mascot and branding strategy, but they're not going to announce it until February 2nd. So we'll get to discuss whatever their new year new me is on the next show, the first show in February. So I'm excited to see what that is.
I will say something about the Browns and the whole Baker thing is I was mentioning this on Twitter is I think Baker gets way too much hate because you got Nick Chubb, who's one of the best running backs in the league this year, and the play call in the last 3-4 weeks has been god awful to where he just sits there and they just pass constantly. I just don't understand that. And if they would have used him, my husband would have won first place in fantasy football this year.
Right.
But I think it's a lot of stuff. I think Baker got sacked 8 to 10 times Monday night. Like that's awful. You know, he's been playing hurt all year pretty much. But it's a lot of things that need to be fixed with the Browns. I do want to mention we had Big Ben on the list earlier today.
Yeah,
That
in
was
terms of complicated relationships. Thank you. So, in terms of
Yeah.
being complicated, so franchise quarterback Ben Roethlisberger retired from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, I guess not technically retired because they
But he
do
will
have
be.
their game. And they potentially may make the playoffs, but not if the football gods love me. And so but if you watch the game Monday night, it was definitely a king send-off for Big Ben in his 18 years as a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like so many others before him, when he retired, it was nothing but like good things to say and remembering his career as this Hall of Fame quarterback and all this stuff. But for me, the first thing I think of when I think of Ben Roethlisberger was all the sexual assaults. And I know I see that angry face, and you know what? We got to talk about it. We got to own our mess. We talked about this before. We got to have the audacity to be authentic, as the show's motto insists. And we have to talk about the fact that we are now glorifying this man who, like, talking about where there's smoke, there's fire, someone who settled claims out of court for allegations of sexual assault and sexual misconduct. But, you know, of course, none of the announcers are going to talk about that as he, you know, had this storybook ending in Heinz Field in terms of like, I don't know why he was so hype about that last play. That was 100% Najee Harrison, who I love. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Alabama Crimson Tide, I could not love Najee Harrison more. I wish I was his mother. I'm definitely old enough to be his mother, and I wish I was so. But that was all him, and that was an amazing run. And then, you know, the Steelers defense gets an interception, and so Ben gets to have what he called, and which I also agree, is the greatest play in all of football, which is the game-winning kneel down. And so he got to have this incredible moment at the same time. For me, as much as I wanted to appreciate that moment, because I'm someone where I'm like, if I'm invested enough to hate you, then like that's still a lot of emotion, right?
Yeah.
It's not the opposite of love, right? Indifferences, right? So I would, you know, as much as like I talk crap about Coach K, like when he plays his last game, I'm gonna cry because I'm a big softie. But like that rivalry is important to me. My hatred for the Steelers is important to me. And I wanted to have that moment. And in some ways, it was beautiful and touching. And, you know, after a string of incidents earlier on, we hadn't heard anything else. So we assume it's not happening. He also didn't like show any type of contrition or anything. They put Michael Vick out here doing like video commercials with Sarah McLachlan for like Save the Puppies, right? After what he did, and made him like basically start every sentence with, I'm Michael Vick. I'm really sorry for what I did 10 years ago. But Ben Roethlisberger never had to show any contrition. He just had to keep his head up, keep his nose clean, and the league kind of moved on from that. So Yeah, speaking of complicated and makeovers, and he kind of had his own makeover. He had this reputation. He gets married, and then we don't hear anything else about him. Um, yeah, any other teams, players?
I will say this is back on the Big Ben thing. Is a crazy, crazy stat they put on the screen. Was in the 18 years that he's been with the Steelers, he's only played 2 games to where they were out of the playoffs.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah. And the stat that I love even more is that Coach Mike Tomlin, who I absolutely love, despite absolutely hating the Pittsburgh Steelers, every year I find myself in this position where I'm like, how can Mike Tomlin win and the Steelers lose? Right. Which is the feeling that I have every time a player from Duke plays in the NBA for the Clippers. Um, like, how can JJ Redick lose, but the Clippers still win? But But yeah, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in the NFL. Even if they lose the game on Sunday in the NFL's first 17 game season, he will go 8-1 with a tie, which will literally put him at even, which in the NFL is not considered a losing season. So he's had 2 8-8 seasons previously, but he's never had a losing season as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was my favorite stat of the night. So with Big Ben getting his win, it officially did something good for Mike Tomlin, who I love. I wish he were my uncle. And I wish he
Alright,
were the coach of the
so
Dallas
you want to be a
Cowboys.
niece and you want to be a mother today.
Yes, those are my wishes. I wish I had been related to Betty White. Like I wish I had been her granddaughter.
We all wish that.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller.
I wish I had a girl who looked good. I would call her. Actually, I do call Cherita all the time. There you go. So speaking of New Year, New Me, the New Year's is also about new phone who dis. So I don't know if this experience happens to you all, but every year around the last week of the year and the first week of the new year, I get a bunch of phone calls from guys, probably because my name starts with A, or text as they're going through their phones and clearing out contacts and thinking, do I want to be, unmarried for another year? Let me hit up Annie. So I always get a random like, good morning, beautiful. Haven't heard from you in a while, as if I only have an outgoing line. So the new phone who dis topic for our sports and sports adjacent talk show is about the NBA, who is also hitting up some old numbers that they haven't used in a while and calling people from the G League, from overseas, from off their couches to come and fill roster spots as the league is basically ravaged by COVID and players are not able to play even with reduced quarantine times. And so players who you haven't heard of in a long time are now either getting new contracts or 10-day contracts, suiting up, and it looks like kind of like a celebrity basketball game in a way, because it's like, okay, these are people who I know, but who I don't know playing basketball as of now. So it's just really interesting to see the NBA season with so many like, I don't know, it feels like one of those like old school variety shows where they start having like cast members from the earlier seasons like come on and making appearances and stuff like that. And that's what watching NBA games has been like. Have you all been keeping up with either COVID protocols that are ravaging not only the NBA, but also the NFL and other sports leagues where they're having to call in new people? Or what are your thoughts about these like 10-day contracts that they're handing out to people to just come play temporarily so that they don't have to cut their season and therefore cut their money?
As long as they don't call Muggsy Bowles, I'm cool.
What you got against Muggsy?
I mean, let the man sit down. He
Yes.
got his talents taken in Space Jam. I mean, just, let him sit down. They could call the Toon Squad. I would watch that. They should call some of them N1 people from back in the day. I mean, let's make it very entertaining if we're going to start pulling
Right. Like, where's Ice Cube? Can we get some like big three
Harlem
people?
Globetrotters.
Yes, the Harlem Globetrotters. Even call the Washington Generals. I mean, what do we have to lose at this point?
I mean, call me. There's nothing to lose at this point, to your point.
Exactly.
I mean, speaking of the COVID follow-ups, I mean, day one was the most recent pay-per-view that the WWE had, and Roman Reigns was slated to fight for his championship, and he caught COVID. It was one of the blessing out of that curse was it put Brock Lesnar into a historic. I'm guessing there was never a fatal 5-way for the heavyweight championship. So we got to see 5 we'll say 3 heavyweights and 2 other folks, get into the ring and see a pretty decent match. And I mean, they kind of made lemons out of lemonade from that perspective, because Roman Reigns definitely, he was out, and a couple other individuals would have been out if they hadn't made them like force her preemptively like quarantine before that pay-per-view. But yeah, to your point on the NBA, if they're calling everybody back, they should kind of just do a DraftKings and let people decide who they want to see come back.
That's an amazing idea. I want them to be like America votes for who is the next former NBA player to get an NBA contract. Like an American Idol style 10-day contract. I would love that. I don't even know who I would want. Huh? No.
They're like, no
limits. No
huh?
limits.
No limits.
No limits. No. I want them to get Jalen Rose out the hosting booth. I want them to get Bill Russell to step off his high horse, chastising people, and get back on the court and prove to people, since you said you could have played in any era of basketball. Now's your chance to prove it, old man. Get in there, get a 10-day, go back to Boston, see if you can do it. I would love it. Let's just like the fans get like a percentage of the vote for like the all-star teams. I think we should get a percentage of the vote, and we should have like a voting type thing for like who gets the next 10-day contract in the NBA.
I want to see the promo though. I want to see them plead their case for why we should vote for them. Like I want to see this pageant style.
Ooh, pageant style. I like the sound of that. Would it be kind of like All-Star Weekend where they have to engage in some like pass, dribble, shoot contest or three-pointer contest?
All the stuff that the NBA players used to do as far as their sponsorships. I want to see you do a Nike commercial. I want to see you sell me Old Spice. I want to see you on a 3-point or a dunk challenge. I want to see a little bit of everything. Then I want to vote after you give me a special skill. Play piano, tap dance, something like that.
Like an interview question, like ask them about world peace. Speaking of, get Meta World Peace back out there. Yes, Meta World Peace. I love it. Get him back out there.
Maybe Barkley's available.
Yes, I would love to see Barkley and Shaq back out there.
We need to be on Chloe's Revenge Body Challenge first before we throw Barkley back in there.
So that's my thing. Does the NBA reach out to these guys, or do the guys call in and be like, hey, let me, lace them up again for a little bit?
I think at this point they're calling, like, shoot your shot, literally and figuratively, right?
It's kind of like
following WWE's stance, because they've been calling a lot of people out the woodworks to come back onto the roster.
It's kind of like sucks though if you're a contending team and like, you got some old fart on your team, and like, what if they're not? Obviously they're not going to be as good as they used to be, as back in the day or whatever. So, like, you're trying to make the playoffs, and then it's just weird. Like, I feel like I was saying earlier with, like, since 2020 COVID season throughout all sports it's kind of like, are these championships even real? So, like, with basketball, with this happening, is this even going to be real? But Miss Williams said, so basically Miss America for the NBA.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Miss
Williams, you should host it. We'll bring you back.
Yes, Miss Williams can host it. That would be amazing.
Don't let Fred introduce her, though. Don't do that.
I love this idea. I don't know who we pitch it to, but we definitely need a Miss America style aspect to NBA 10-day contracts to get through COVID. It would draw in some more interest to the NBA. Like if you were like, especially if it was unveiled, like at the game, like you just show up. And it's like, and starting at center for the Los Angeles Lakers, and there's like a drum roll, and then it's like, Shaq is back, and it's like, ah.
That would
be.
We
want Mass Singer, Miss America, and America's Got Talent. Those are the 3 platforms we're putting together.
Yes, love it.
Real fast, Annie, did you happen to see any of the show last week?
I did not.
All right, well, Fred's going to hell because he I don't know. Pretty much, you would have to go listen to it, but he
Okay.
made it seem like Miss Williams wasn't with us anymore, and
Oh no. He
and
put
I
her
would
on
have.
Betty White status?
Every
No.
single face that you could see on the couch or virtually all just sucked the life out of us because we were scared of his next sentence. And then boom, she's on the screen and she's saying God
Yeah,
alive and well. But going from John Madden to, by the way, someone else we would have heard from today, but we haven't yet. Like, sir.
yeah. It was brutal. I went upstairs and told my husband right away, and he's like, "He can't do that." I'm like, "He can't scare the hell out of us." So, Fred, I'm still upset with you.
Wow. Yeah, please stay with us, Miss Williams.
All
We
right.
need you. So speaking of basketball and fresh starts, Becky Hammond signed a 5-year deal to become the new head coach of the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA, leaving her position as an assistant coach in the NBA with the San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich, which she's had, I think, since 2014 in some capacity, eventually moving up to the bench very recently. One of the things that she said when asked about leaving was that when she would interview for open NBA positions, that she was continuously told like, oh, well, you've only been with Greg Popovich, or you've only been in San Antonio, and so there were always these like reasons as to why she wasn't getting those positions. Whereas the owner of the Las Vegas Aces, he said he literally only asked her about basketball. And said that she had the knowledge and the talent and the managerial skills to be a head coach. So I think there are a lot of great things for that story. One, just celebrating Becky Hammond, who I still think one day will be a coach in the NBA. I still think it's possible that she could be hired back to the NBA when Greg Popovich retires, not leaves us in a Betty White style, but just retires, right? Um, Fred. Um, but I also thought it was interesting, just kind of the gaslighting around, her previous interviews in the NBA in terms of like, oh, well, you've only been in San Antonio. And it's like, you don't think these other coaches have just been places before and then like ended up somewhere else? Or Greg Popovich is one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. You don't think being under his tutelage for 8 years is the exact right preparation and experience for an NBA job? Why would that be considered a negative, right? And I feel like that's something that only happens to people from minoritized identities when it comes to things like coaching and those type GM positions and those sorts of things. So, what was your read on either from that side of it in terms of sometimes the discrimination that happens against women in sports, um, or from the celebration side in terms of like Becky Hammond is going to the WNBA and is now the highest WNBA coach?
I was just reading up on it for what you sent me, and I don't think we've seen change with women in sports a little bit here and there the last year or so, but obviously we still got a ways to go, and
Mhm.
apparently NBA coaches or not coaches but teams and organizations aren't taking her seriously, even though she's been with, like you said, with one of the best coaches in the NBA in
Mhm.
history for since 2014. So hopefully she just goes back to the WNBA, where it all started for her, and she just could
Mhm.
show what she can do, and maybe she goes out there and wins a championship. The NBA will take her a little more serious, as if they needed to already. But yeah.
Yeah. Cherita, any thoughts?
I just appreciate the perspective that she basically, like to your point, Annie, was under the tutelage of one of the best coaches who's still around right now, and then she's taking that knowledge and going back to the WNBA. So I mean
Mhm.
that's almost like getting rich and going back to the hood, right? Like she's made that she got what she needed to understand it herself on that next level of execution, and then
Mhm.
making collectively a whole team of women better. Like ideally, these women could be the next her times like 25. So I think it's amazing that she didn't forsake that opportunity, because she could have been his right hand woman for a minute and had that, that spot in the NBA. And she weighed her cards and also looked at how she could give back to where she got her beginnings to pay this forward. So I just think from a community outreach perspective and from a mentor business pass down, that's one of the most awesome things I've seen in the news lately as far as women in sports.
Yeah, Miss Williams saying with the NBA owners aren't ready for a female head coach. And then she also said something else, Fred. I'm glad she's gotten the opportunity to be a head coach.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that to me is a wonderful start to January. Awesome news. Congratulations, Becky Hammond. So also in the spirit of, new starts, January, it's also known not only for its new starts, but also for being cold. So speaking of the cold and the cold shoulder, let's talk NHL. So the NHL decided that they were not going to take their traditional break in order for NHL players to go and play for their respective countries in the Winter Olympics, which is starting next month, less than a month. I believe it starts February 2nd. And so some of the NHL players are trying to find loopholes so that they can still go play. But what do you think about the NHL telling its players that they can't go represent their countries because they're not going to stop their season?
Well, I mean, I think they already had planned that they were going to stop the season for this. And even with that week to 2 week break that we just had, mainly for COVID,
Mhm.
they're going to be using those games that they canceled to fill in that they were going to have.
Right.
But I mean, I think the main thing was the fact that if anyone was to test positive, and I think Beijing is where it's at, they're there. I think for 5 weeks or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
so I mean, it obviously affects more than just the Olympics. It affects the team and the states moving forward. So, and I don't know if it was just the players and the league couldn't come together, because they had until the 10th of this month to come to some sort of agreement, and the NHL
Mhm.
just said no, we're not going. So me personally, I am happy it's not happening, because there's no baseball news going around, so I need to watch the Blues. But but yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like, obviously, everyone takes their country very seriously, and I know, like, Tarasenko for the Blues, he was upset because he wanted to play with Russia, but I mean, it is what it is, So um, maybe in the next Winter Olympics, all this COVID crap's gone, and we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. The tough thing about the Olympics is that it only happens every 4 years, right?
Hmm.
So your window to participate in it is much smaller than like any other type of sports event. Because it's not like it's something, if you are Clay Thompson, right? Like, and you need to recover from an injury, like you could potentially come back to a team and contend for a championship immediately, right? But if you have to miss this Olympics, it's not going to be for another 4 years that
I
you get a chance to come back and play with your team, your country team, right? Or, have that honor of potentially winning like an Olympic gold and those sorts of things for your country. So,
I will say it's obviously a small few, but like people like Yerman Yager, and I think his name's
Mhm.
Pavel Datsut, they're like probably close to 50 now, but they're still they're still skating and playing in these Olympics every couple years. So I mean, again, stay healthy enough and whatnot, you'll be good. But
Mhm.
Miss Williams said losing a player for 5 to 7 weeks could be a big issue for teams, but you do feel for the players.
Yeah. And like you said, Joe, in the past, it wasn't a loss to the NHL because they took the Winter Olympic break.
Hmm.
And so it was a pause on the season, but like you noted, so nobody was missing games. But like you noted, Joe, because of the games that have already been missed due to COVID and rescheduling and them spacing games out further so that they could follow travel restrictions and those sorts of things across the different cities and with Canada as well,
Yeah.
which has different restrictions and travel restrictions and things like that than the US. They were just like, nope, we're going to use this time that every other Winter Olympics we've given you off, and we're going to make up our own games for our own league.
Yeah,
So,
and I do think the All-Star game's in there somewhere as well. So they're gonna
mhm,
have another break and everything. So because it
yeah,
was only, like I said, probably a week and a half that they missed due to COVID. So with those games filling in that gap, and then the All-Star game, they should be good to go.
Yeah. Cherita, did you have any thoughts about a league telling you, nope, you don't get to go represent your country. You work for us. You stay in here.
Maybe it's just the people leader in me, but communicating it more for we want to protect you for your families, right? Because
Mhm.
with the travel that's happening, you go there, and let's make sure that we look at ourselves in the mirror too. Our COVID rates aren't great either right now,
Mhm.
so making sure that we're not bringing something over. You could not have it and carry it and bring it somewhere. So I mean, mutual protection for the athletes who are already participating in the games, that we're not adding to your possibility of getting it, and also protecting you that you don't go somewhere overseas, come back and not just miss a game, but possibly, bring that to your family and your household. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's the narrative in which you share the restriction versus being the selfish headline of we don't want to lose any more games. It's bigger than
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Messaging is definitely key and those sorts of things, right? So we go from the cold shoulder to the stone cold shoulder. So Sharita, what's happening in wrestling?
I mean, I hinted to some of it earlier. Roman Reigns, praying for him. He caught COVID, so he wasn't able to do day one. Because Brock Lesnar was thrown into the heavyweight championship, we all knew Biggie was going to lose that belt. Liv Morgan lost to Becky Lynch, so no surprise there. We kind of talked about it on the 1 year anniversary show, how we felt about Liv Morgan being rebranded. She's a pretty face, she's a skilled athlete, but she's honestly just not good enough. Putting her in a ring with Becky Lynch it's a popcorn break and it's a bathroom break for those who attended live or watched it at home and held it for the previous other matches that were worth watching. Um, just kind of looking forward to how they build up to the Royal Rumble. Paul Heyman, in true Paul Heyman fashion, who is the advocate for Brock Lesnar. For anyone who missed Annie and I talking about this with Joe last month, basically Brock Lesnar is being managed by Paul Heyman, but advocate it's such a cooler way to say it,
Right.
so that's what he is to
Right.
him. Paul Heyman was Superman punched by Roman Reigns once he admitted that he had been protecting Roman from Brock Lesnar, and that's why he wasn't telling Roman all of the moves that he was strategizing for Brock. He got the mic. He basically laid a very solid pipe bomb on the quarantined Roman Reigns, and basically said that look how well Roman's done without me. 1 week without me by his side, and he's caught COVID.
Damn, that's kind of
it
harsh.
was it was a damn moment for all of us. Like if someone could play the Smokey and Craig on Friday, it was that across the entire stadium. So I'm just interested to see where this goes. The Usos retain their tag team championship, and we all know how much Roman hates when his cousins lose. So one less thing to be pissed off about when he comes back in 2 days, prayerfully in 2 days. But yeah, it was a solid pay-per-view. Carmella and Zelina held on to their tag team championship for the women's division. RK Bro is still functioning, so Randy has not turned on Matt Riddle yet, but I have a feeling I may see that live in 3 weeks, so I will keep you all posted on that one. But honestly, I normally have complaints from one brand or the other, and I'll be honest, since day one, Raw had a solid start to the week. SmackDown never really disappoints, and I already told you how I feel about NXT. So at this point, I'm just praying that we properly utilize CM Punk at AEW. I saw a solid promo between him and the wrestler that he's decided to go back to back with. I will pay more attention to Daniel Bryanson, since my frenemy T-Bone has called him his guy to watch out for this year. So I'll be watching out for Bryan Danielson. But just making sure that everybody stays healthy and that we got a good solid pay-per-view coming up. Because at the rate that some of these wrestlers are going out with COVID, it's either going to be solid because they stay healthy, or I'm going to want my money back on the 30th. So I will keep you guys posted on that.
So when you said that once you knew that once the audience knew that Brock Lesnar was going to be fighting for the championship, that they knew that the other wrestler wasn't going to win. So does Brock Lesnar have it in his contract where he's not allowed to lose a title match? Because you know how like The Rock has it in his acting contract that he's not allowed to lose an on-screen fight?
That makes sense. Honestly, Brock is a free agent, so he can float wherever he wants in WWE without actually having it count for or against him. He can be fined, he can be suspended, but whenever that's over, he can pop up on any show. So everyone else is tied to a roster. Brock was technically on the SmackDown affiliation, but with Roman being out, they put him into a championship match that was otherwise reserved for Raw superstars. So when you put Brock Lesnar in a match, and just to remind everybody here, a fatal four-way by itself is not the champion's advantage. Big E is the title holder. If Kevin Owens would have pinned Seth Rollins, he would take the championship from Big E. So you already don't need to be involved in losing your belt, and then you add Brock Lesnar to those odds. So last that happened is they did a rematch of the Fatal 4-Way because Brock didn't have to fight. He is the champion. And right now we're looking at Bobby Lashley going against Brock Lesnar. Two behemoths of a man. But I'll be honest with you, as much as I want to go for the tall, dark, and handsome guy, I already know that Vince has got this in the bag for Brock Lesnar to win, or he'll lose by disqualification and keep the championship. So we'll see how that plays out on the 29th. But as much as I really want to see Bobby Lashley give him the business, I already know MVP is going to F it up, or Paul Heyman's going to find a way to get Brock Lesnar that championship.
So it makes sense that he would have that clause in his contract that he's not allowed to lose a title fight.
He's lost a fight. He's lost on screen before, but when he loses, he still wins. Like, those people don't get back up.
How old's Brock Lesnar?
52.
Is that legit?
I'm just guessing. I'm guessing. I have no idea.
Well, no, I'm thinking it's probably about right because I feel like this dude's been on. He's been wrestling forever, and I do feel like every time he's on TV, he's always winning.
He's 44.
Oh, so he's not that much older than me.
Yeah, it's not bad. I just feel like he's been on TV
to be
forever.
His niece or his
He's
mother.
actually the same age as John Cena. If you put those two side by side, it feels like there's a 10-year gap somewhere. So
yeah.
He's had a rough life.
You said Cena's been around for a while?
Yeah, him and John Cena are the exact same age, and Brock looks like he has a good 10 years on John. So yeah. I don't know if it's the cauliflower ear or what, but definitely feels like he's had a rougher life in the face.
I feel the same way. Me and Ben Roethlisberger are almost exactly the same age. He's older by 38 days.
And you are constantly on your Stella got her groove back. So, I mean.
Right.
He was looking a little rough the other night.
Yes, he looked like a coal miner, which is appropriate for the city of Pittsburgh. So we went from January being cold and the cold shoulder to the stone cold shoulder, sticking with the cold theme and going back to the Olympics. So Cool Runnings, one of my favorite movies as a kid. So there's some new Olympic sports making their debuts in this Olympics that again starts, I believe, February 2nd. So less than a month from now. There's, I think, 7 or 8 new events that are debuting. One of them is the monobob, which is for women, which is not like this bob, but the bobsled for women. So they already have like the team bobsled for women, but it's the first time that women will have solo bobsledding. So what Olympic event do you think, if you were given 6 months to train for, that you could reasonably go out and have a good showing for?
Did we add pillow fighting to that yet? We talked about that in the last show. I could win that one.
So is pillow fighting more of an Olympic sport or a summer sport? See, that's what I was about to say, Joe. I think it's a summer Olympic sport.
I think it has a duality. Let's throw that word back in there.
This is the word tonight.
Good callback. Yes, duality. You have like a winter pillow fighting league. And so like we have in volleyball. So you have indoor volleyball, you have beach volleyball. So in the winter, we have indoor pillow fighting. And in the summer, we have beach pillow fighting.
I've never seen that before in my life. Pillow fighting outside or on a beach at all, but whatever. I'm gonna go with one of my favorite Winter Olympic sports, and I don't even know how it's a sport, but I really like it and I like watching it, and that's curling.
Yes,
I think that would be fun to sit there and go.
Right, curling is weirdly entertaining. Like I
love
can't explain it. It's kind of like part ASMR, part I don't know.
You can enjoy it with most of your senses. So I do.
Right, and it's
Very
just like
makes you a fan.
just like what is the origin of this? Who started this, and who co-signed on it? Right, like it's one thing to be a person who's like, let's sweep the ice in order to get a heavy metal object to slide across it. It's another thing to be the person who's like, Bob, that's a great idea. I support that, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just
so fun to watch.
Somebody who was somebody's like servant or nanny or something, and like out of watching it, they were like, "We should make them do this for sport." I just feel like that's what
you think it's rooted in servitude.
It may be, you know,
dark turn. I think it was made up by people who couldn't do the other Olympic sports, like they couldn't ski, and so they were like, you know what? Let's sweep the ice and bowl and parcheesi. No, not parcheesi. What's that thing they pay that the old people play on the cruise ships?
It's like
where you got to hit
washer
something
type thing, right? Or not washers, but
you know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah,
where
I
they,
know
like,
what you're
slide
talking
the thing
about.
across the floor, and the goal is to like get it in there, but not like that's what curling.
Yeah, it's like hockey, but
shuffleboard.
There you go, shuffleboard.
So, shuffleboard, chores, and bowling, and ASMR. That's curling.
Real quick, y'all, we got Fred with the breaking news from Antonio Brown. Brown said he felt like he couldn't re-enter the game because of his lingering ankle injury, and Aaron's, is that how you say his name? Arians? Yeah. I don't even know. Yeah. Reacted angrily and cut him on the spot. And his quote is, "I don't quit. I was cut. I didn't walk away from my brothers. I was thrown out." 1, you didn't walk out. You hopped out and threw your hands up. 2, Mike Evans was trying to stop you. So yes, you did leave your brothers. So I'm tired of his excuses. I'm sorry. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
The way you explained it, Joe, I felt like I pictured an Omega Sci-Fi stroll.
It wasn't nearly as smooth, though. It was literally like, it reminded me of like conditioning drills that I've done playing sports. It was like this, or something that I've done in my living room to like a Richard Simmons video. It was like this side hop jumping jack.
The Kanye
Well, the game's going on.
Joe, do we have any other comments before we continue our sports competition discussion?
Well, Miss Williams saying before TV and video games, there wasn't a lot to do during the winter. So
I agree, but I don't think I would have settled on sweeping ice.
This is my thing, though. So the person that, I don't even know what that block is, you gotta have good balance, okay? Like, they're like perfect for like however long sliding on the ice, and you know how tired you would be constantly doing that super freaking fast. I'm sorry, their shoulders probably had to be jacked. I'm sure you get pretty tired doing that.
We need to investigate that, Joe. We need to interview some professional curling, or is aspiring to be a professional curler. That'd be an interesting story by itself.
I need the 30 for 30 on curling now.
Sure, it's out there somewhere.
I don't have an answer for the Winter Olympics that I could win within or be good at in 6 months.
Yeah.
But breakdancing is going to be part of the 2024 Olympics. I think I can get that down.
What? Are you a break dancer? Did I not know this?
Dance. So I feel like my ability to do either individually could accompany me into success into breakdancing for the tryout for the Olympics for breakdancing. Just give me a cardboard box. I work for Amazon. I got plenty of those. The skill will just come in time and with a prayer.
That's hilarious. I remember being a teenager with my brother and us cutting up cardboard boxes and putting them in our living room and trying to do windmills and headstands. Like, that's a real thing that happened in my teenage years.
Like, they've already gotten such better music for the floor routines and gymnastics, and now we have breakdancing in the Olympics. Like, Kool Moe Dee is going to be coming back. We're going to have Run DMC, LL Cool J. This Olympic in 2024 is going to need a playlist, and I will gladly
10-day contracts for old school, for like the old cast of Breakin' to debut in the Summer Olympics.
I think Miss Williams said, what was it, the 1500s that started where in Scotland curling?
That sounds about right.
It's just weird to me to even think that there was a time in 1500s.
Right?
You know, it's just weird to even imagine that.
Right. So speaking of Northern European countries, look at that segue.
So I'm happy you're the host because that would not have happened with me.
So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this is tangentially related to the Olympics in terms of the myth of the 10,000 hours and specialization, particularly when it comes to sports, right? So maybe you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell, popular author, and his book Outliers, which talked about the 10,000 hour rule, which he described it as basically it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in something. Um, Sports writer David Epstein has like contradicted that theory through his own research. They're actually like best pals now who like go running together. But it was an interesting discussion. And one of the things that David Epstein pointed to was that Norway um, has really strong showings in the Summer and Winter Olympics, especially surprising for Summer Olympics, especially since they don't get much summer up there. Like they're like beach volleyball powerhouses for somewhere that doesn't really have beaches with like sand that I want to play in a mosquito, right? But even with being such a small country, like, and what they credit that to is that 2 years ago they did away with keeping score in children's sports. There's no such thing as regional championships until age 11, and no such thing as national championships until age 13. And their whole premise is that part of being great at sports is actually not specializing too soon, but really getting what's called body literacy in terms of doing a bunch of different sports, working out different parts of your body before you ultimately specialize, which we have a very different approach here in the United States, which is once we see a baby showing any proclivity towards something, we're like, let's put that baby in the AAU version of that sport. Let's get them practicing all day, every day. We use sort of Tiger Woods as the model, which is not entirely accurate because he also played baseball and did cross country running. But we're like, from 2 years old, put a ball, club, bat, stick in their hand and make them do that for forever, right? So I thought that was really interesting from like a research standpoint, since that's my connection to all of this. But I was curious from the parenting standpoint, since we have two moms on the show. How do you feel about kids specializing in sports? For your own kids, at what age will you let your kids play sports? Will you make sure that they play competitively? Will you let them stick with only one sport, or will you make them try out a number of things and not specialize too soon? How do you view this idea of like sports and specialization as moms?
It sounds good in theory. I think culturally speaking, we put our kids in specialized sports and we have them stick to that sport because sports cost money. The uniform
Yeah.
costs money. The equipment and everything that goes with it costs money. So I mean that's cool if you have the bread to rotate your kid through 7 different types of uniforms between 3 years old and 10 years old. But it's also a little area of self-discipline too. Do you like it? Let's see if you're good at it. You can't quit just because you don't like it. And then if you honestly are good at it or not, after a couple of years, we'll try something else. But just from the frugality of being a parent, and Carmen is in nothing I pay for. She's already costing me money on toys she doesn't play with every day. So to have the idea that, all right, kid, today you're going to do gymnastics. Next year, you're going to do baseball. The year after that, if you want to do football, we'll send you to Florida so Auntie Annie can teach you. But that's a lot of money that goes into something that you're not even teaching your kid to stick with for the long run. So, I mean, I get it, but I mean, put that kid in gym and let them figure it out then. Putting them in a rotated team sport, they're also not building brotherhood or sisterhood either, because those same kids are most likely going to stick with that sport. So I think it's a lot more of a disconnect that you're teaching, and you're spending a lot of money in the long run, and they're not even building the skill to be good at anything long term. So from the parent who does not do sports, just from a pocketbook perspective, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. How
Sorry.
were all of you raised by parents like my mom? And my mom is Tina Detweiler, the one that's been making the comments.
Oh, okay. Hi, Annie's
Uh,
mom.
where it was like, if you paid to start the season, you gonna finish this, because she had already paid her hard-earned money on it. So there was no quitting things mid-season. Were you guys raised by parents who were like, you at least finish this until I've finished paying for it?
No, I'm finishing the year. That's. I will say there was only one sport that I didn't enjoy, and then Annie's mom said, "Absolutely 100, Cherita." um,
Thanks, Auntie Tina.
um, I've played like growing up in like elementary and middle school, 3 sports, but basketball was like the one that I couldn't get 100% zoned into, so it was always just softball and soccer. Um, but yeah, I feel like Sharita obviously makes a good point. Sports are expensive. Like just in my position, being a catcher. That's what I got for Christmas was catching gear because that stuff's expensive. But the dream is to have Mia, baby Bova, do multiple things. I wanted to be as soon as possible, but I mean, I'm not gonna force it on her. Like I've never in my life liked gymnastics, but my niece does that, and she's talked about at 2 years old they can start doing that. So maybe that will happen, but I would like for her to try other sports and find something that she likes.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Williams said my son Ed only played basketball because that was the main sport at his school. They started it in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Then her only exposure to sports was in the gym, and she said, to be fair, I sucked at all sports.
Yeah.
Oh, stop, Miss Williams.
Me too.
Right. Speaking of body literacy, I mean, with gym, between Foursquare and dodgeball, I felt like that got you all of the body literacy you needed, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
They don't even do those anymore. Shame.
Because they got iPads in class now, but we're not going to go there.
Yeah, that's weird. I see my little cousins with that, and I'm just, times have changed. Let me tell you. Like I was forced to do cursive, and my notes in class had to be in cursive, and I get a demerit if I didn't do it. I don't know. Things have changed big time.
I used to kill in dodgeball. I think taking a rubber ball to the face builds character. So even if they don't
Not
have
when it's cold outside, though. Because that has happened.
you're playing in an indoor gym, okay? This isn't
okay.
Norway Beach dodgeball. This is indoor heated dodgeball.
Okay.
Wait, what movie was that? Clueless, where she was like, the doctor said I can't have balls flying on my face. And she was like, there goes her social life. But yeah, so even if my kid no longer has it in school, I think we're just gonna do some like backyard mommy just throws balls at you to build character sessions. So
let me take back Cena and Carmen to learn football.
No, Carmen can come and play too. It'll toughen her up.
Miss Williams said the first time she was actually on a team was when she started her job at Sigma and she joined the bowling league. Bowling is a sport. There's no defense.
Bowling is not a sport. So
if they teach it in gym, it's a sport. All right, that's
they
just
teach Foursquare in gym. That is not a sport. Although if it was in the Olympics, your girl would take home the gold medal.
I'm gonna tell you something though. Anytime I bowl, I am sore the next day. My fingers hurt. My shoulder hurts. Huh?
I think you're doing it wrong.
It's the body literacy, Annie.
I think you need a ball with bigger holes if your fingers are hurting afterwards.
All right, next topic. Your mom's on here, Annie. Watch your mom.
My mama knows me. The question is your mama watching? My mama's met me. Okay. So
after dark, everyone.
So rounding out our topics for the show. We know that coming out of the New Year's, all the holidays, in terms of oh wait, I think there's one more comment on this. Hold on.
Oh, to be clear, it wasn't because I was good. All the others were good, and they needed a handicap for.
That makes sense. Or someone to grab the beers, right? That's always important.
And then your mother said we played sports to stay out of trouble. All sports was free growing up. Now even cheer is so expensive, $3,000 a year, not including tumbling. I don't know what tumbling is.
Yeah, that's not an estimate. My baby sister was a cheerleader for several years and had to pay at her public school, pay for like uniforms and extra classes and all this other stuff. And I was like, Antonio Brown cheered for free across the end zone, okay, with his jumping jacks. This is not
so let's not put those two together.
Look, I'm just saying it doesn't cost $3,000 to excitedly jump in an end zone. So
right, yeah.
But yes, so the end of the year is often thought of as the most wonderful time of the year because of all the different holidays that are taking place, which we talked about last show. But for me and this show and what we have ahead of us is the real most wonderful time of the year, which is us coming into the NFL playoffs. But first, we have our first ever week 18 in the NFL, with this being the first year of a 17-game season. And so one of the things that is at stake in this week, besides playoff seeding, probably the Cowboys blowing a game that they should win. That's really important against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not going to go there. But one of the other things that is at stake is the record books. So again, we talked about Monday night, Najee Harris broke Franco Harris's rookie rushing record, and in which he played more games than Franco Harris played. And now with this 18th season, there are a number of NFL players who now with this extra game have one more chance at breaking some of the records from this period that we've had of 16-game seasons. Cooper Kupp, for one, has a chance to break 2 wide receiver records, and J.J. Watt for the Steelers has a chance to break the season sack record. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
T.J. Watt, and he'd be breaking J.J.'s record if he did.
He'd be breaking Michael Strahan's record for most sacks in the season, right?
Well, I saw J.J. tweet out at T.J. saying something like, "Go get that record," and saying something about it. So either way,
he was congratulating him on joining like the 20 sack club. But I think the record is still Michael Strahan's, but he has a chance to break it given this extra game.
Oh yeah.
So how do you all feel about whether or not there should be an asterisk next to records that are broken in the NFL from now on, given that players have an extra game to try to do it?
I mean, I guess you could compare this to any sport, though. Like baseball was never 162 games a year, and records been broken, and there's not asterisks next to that. So, I mean, if it's going to continue to be 18 weeks or 17 weeks, whatever you want to call it, then it should be fair and even,
It's an extra week, correct? So I feel like that's more energy where they could have been like doing nothing. So an extra week doesn't guarantee you would have broken a record. So to me, it's a little offensive that you're going to put something next to me that you forced on me, because I didn't wake up as a player saying, why don't we all sign this petition to play an extra week just in case we break a record? Like, if you're going to introduce a new level to the game and people end up outperforming what they would normally do in 17, I don't think that's a fair demerit to put next to someone that you did really good, but it was an extra week. Like, bro, that's time I would have spent at home. There's no guarantee I would be this good this week. Like, that's not a fair call out for me.
Yeah. I agree with your point, Joe, in terms of none of the sports seasons have always been the number of games that they are currently. So do we only go by however many games you started off with when your league was formed? Those are the real records. And from then on, everything gets an asterisk every time we change the format or the rules. Or
and sports are constantly changing. Before I read Miss Williams' comments, Brendan must be watching the show, and he sent me JJ's Watt's tweet. So he said, "Welcome to the 20+ sack club."
Yeah.
And then he put in parentheses, "Only one person ever has done it twice. Imagine if it was your older brother and he bragged about it. That would suck." And then he said, "Go break the record, kid."
Yeah.
So Miss Williams, she said, if this continues, the Super Bowl and baseball spring training will be competing for TV spots, and I don't think that's going to happen because spring training probably won't be happening until probably like May. And then she said, that's true of NBA records also. How many of the older players would have had higher career scores if they had 3-point shots? Which, I
Yeah.
mean, that's why you can never really compare players in any sport, like the whole LeBron to Jordan thing. You know, the game's
But we
changed a lot.
could, because we could give Jordan a 10-day contract with the Charlotte
That's
Hornets,
true. That is
If
and
he
he
true.
can
had-
play with LaMelo Ball.
if he tap dances and passes the pageantry.
Yes, if he wins the pageant, then he can earn a 10-day contract to play on the team he owns. Does he get to skip it since he owns the team, though? I feel like you can just put yourself in, right?
Well, in that case, Drake's going to be out there, and we want to see that. Never mind.
I do want Drake to suit up for the Toronto Raptors.
That would be horrible.
That would be an amazing 10-day contract. Let's have that tonight.
Go
I'm
back
sure
to,
between the three of us, one of us has Adam Silver's cell phone number.
Cena said they should all have an asterisk. The level of play and rules are different now.
I mean,
Yes.
honestly, we're going to do asterisks. Let's do it for if you're possibly but let's take the sport out of it. You do great, but you may be facing 20 years for a DUI. Like, let's put an asterisk next to that to maybe put some perspective as that your personal life is, impeding on your professional ability. WWE has removed people from the entire history of WWE because of things that they've done outside of the ring. So I feel like if we're going to start holding things against people, let's not make it an extra week of playing the sport. Let's put it in perspective of the decisions they're making outside the field.
Yeah. So speaking of doing things that could potentially get you an asterisk, get you kicked out of your sport, all of that, we're going to end with our risk it all, our, favorite section. So we had a couple people risking it all since the last show, between Antonio Brown, who's saying he did not in fact risk it all, that he was cut, to I don't know if you saw the video of the fans almost falling on Jalen Hurts. So we had a couple of fans risking it all to be able to touch Jalen Hurts and ended up falling from the stands. The fall wasn't that high. So my question is, would you be willing to fall from a distance from a level of about 3 feet in order to get your hands on Jalen Hurts? Because I might take that risk. Have you seen Jalen Hurts?
I mean, Jalen Hurts is he's cute and all, but like
it would have to be a little nosedive out of the stands. Nobody was hurt.
No, it was funny is I like how he wasn't like freaked out about it. He actually helped them all up, and like not hugged them, but he was nice about it, not freaking out. But
he was totally unfazed by that. You could tell he had defenders falling at his feet all night.
Oh yeah,
that was like the least precarious situation he was in all night.
But if it was like Mike Trout or like Yadier Molina, then yeah, I'm gonna fall that 3 feet to land next to them.
I would definitely take like a 3-foot swoon in front of Klay Thompson to see if he caught me, or if we could have some sort of encounter, have him help me off the ground.
I'm just gonna throw in the pun. People got hurt falling for Hurts. Like no one to say that. No one. Like,
nobody's leaving it for you, baby girl.
I'm looking at some of these pictures, and I was going to say a no, but one of these pictures did make him mildly attractive. Still,
the Q1, right?
Yeah, it was.
What do you mean Q1? Let me look this up.
My weakness.
Yeah, just Google like Jalen Hurts throws up Q sign.
Nah, just Google Jalen Hurts, because apparently it's like one of the top pictures that pops up anyway.
Yeah, because it's a good one.
He was unattractive until that picture.
He was attractive before that picture. He became asterisk level attractive.
No, he's definitely very attractive. Okay, he's very attractive. But
I'm just saying, previously, I wouldn't even want to like walk up and try to get a signature. And then I went through a couple other pictures, and he became more attractive. And then I found that one. I was like,
and then you were like, "That's worth a 3-foot fall, right?"
Our founders love each other, therefore so should we. That's where we need to come in from there.
Fred wants to know if you would stay on the floor or on the ground with Klay.
No, I would just probably have to find my way up his body to stand back up. Just like, oh no, my contacts. Even though
no.
But I mean, oh no, I can't see. Wait, what is this? Help.
He's like, I face 350-pounders, defenders every week. This is nothing.
True.
All right. He sent a letter to the organization for a follow-up on the people. Some say the organization lied about checking on them. What, on the fans that fell?
Oh.
think
I
that's what's going on.
believe that he really did check up on them. He helped them off the ground. He didn't even have to do that. He could have looked at them and been like, "Not my monkeys, not my circus," and kept
Well,
it
yeah,
moving.
there's like some athletes, they're divas, and they would have been like, "I'm gonna sue you now" or something. So
Right.
he took the time to help them, so that was cool. I thought.
I would like to believe that he sent a follow-up letter to the organization to make sure the fine people of Philadelphia are okay. Because I would definitely want him to check in on me, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm feeling a little peckish still. Do you think Jalen Hurts could come check on me, or?
I will check on him after he checked on you because I'm that kind of friend.
I appreciate that. Someone should definitely look out for him. He may not be seen again if he somehow comes to check on
Look
me.
at that smile.
I know. Look at that smile. Hey,
All right.
Jalen.
He's pretty. I like him.
Look, I've even got like Eagles colored hair on right now. Like, what is happening to me today?
Coordinate this. Then again, you did put the show together. Was this all part of your master plan?
It was all a part of my master plan. I knew that Jalen Hurts would be watching tonight. And I was like, hey, boo, hey, check out your girl.
Yeah, to Miss Williams' point, he could have kept walking. I mean, Destiny shouted it to Michelle, and they're in the group together. So
I know. Those were supposed to talk about quitting on your team, Kirk Herbstreit. They let that child fall, took a half glance, and kept it moving, right? I agree. All right, ladies, it's been a show. Let's close out with what resolutions you would have for a team or organization as we wrap up our first show of 2022.
You wanna go first, Shrita, or
Yeah.
Me?
Yep. Go for
All
it.
right.
Jen.
I got 3 of them, and it's all one's baseball, the 2 are local. Is 1 Rob Manfred, if it's possible to get him voted out of the league as commissioner, that would be very lovely. If baseball ever gets back and up and running again, it would be for Mazalak to make a big move, and then for hockey, it would be for Armstrong, the Blues GM, to make a big move for a defenseman, and that's what mine would be.
Gotcha. Cherita, resolutions.
resolution. I think AEW's resolution should be not to F up the careers of the people who were doing decent in WWE and are now kind of being thrown all over the place without strategy at AEW. I would say for actual WWE, Vince McMahon needs to stay off TV. It's cool when he pops up every once in a while, but his personal resolution needs to get some eye drops because his eyes are hella red and it's distracting. And just keep his ass at home. Trust your kids with the business. We don't need to see you for ratings. And last one would definitely be for Jalen Hurts to call me. So if somebody knows somebody, I am sold.
Yes, we need to get Adam Silver on the phone. We need to get Jalen Hurts on the phone. Apparently, we need
somebody in Omega Sci-Fi has his number. So, bruh, calling in a favor. Let's get it.
We need Scottishmen from the 1500s to hop in a time machine and let us know how they decided to come up with curling. My resolution my sports entertainment resolution is to play with my John Cena action figure.
Oh my goodness.
Call back to our December show.
Fred, don't do it.
I've also got the best toy in the whole state. It's a John Cena wrestling belt. So if you don't know what we're talking about and you're out on the joke, go back and watch the December episode of Ladies Night. And my resolution for the Cowboys is they should resolve not to mess this up. Okay, just don't do it. We're way too talented. Micah Parsons is balling out of control. Trayvon Diggs is playing completely out of position, but still somehow looking out into getting picks. We have a dynamic offensive core. This is probably Tyron Smith's last year with him as our Pro Bowl tackle. So let's just resolve to not be the Dallas Cowboys and actually show up in the playoffs this year. All right. So before we go, we have one announcement. Someone making a New Year, New Me decision.
New Year, same me. Same me. So basically, I probably will not be able to stay on the show consistently as I was. You're going to get cameos from me because naturally February cannot start without a Royal Rumble recap, but won't be able to do the whole show every month on the first Wednesday. So wanted to make sure, Annie, we talk often, but Joe, you are my new imaginary best friend. So please understand, someone needs to get you my number because this ladies' night, basement, kick it, hang out, whatever we're gonna do has to happen because I didn't finish this basement to not kick it with you ladies. So we need to make sure that happens. Annie, find your tickets, make it happen. Miss Williams, you the bomb. I just want to tell you that nonstop. Smooth, appreciate the opportunity to be passionate about something, show that, produce a show, be on multiple platforms, no pun intended, of what you put together and what you're passionate about. And of course, to my big sister, Bunny, for putting me into somebody's ear, Smooth, probably you, to even get me on here in the first place. So I appreciate the love, of value, and the ability to just, be unapologetically myself. So you'll still see me here and there, probably not for the whole duration of the show going forward, but you can't get rid of me. So I'll still be whispering in your ears. But just want to thank everybody who let me talk to y'all about something that Annie doesn't even consider a sport on the Sports Talk Show. So that's what I wanted to let everybody know firsthand.
It's sports theater.
Sports entertainment.
All right. And that's our first show. We had a lot to talk about, ladies.
Yeah.
Thank you all for sticking it out with us and for sticking it out with us throughout all of 2022. We hope to catch you the first Wednesday of every month here on the Platform Sports Talk Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that bell. That way you'll get reminders every time we're going live to talk with you about more sports and sports adjacent topics. Have a good night, everybody.
Peace.